In this video, I'll show you how I installed some LED running lights on this 2025 Prius Generation 5. In this case, we're working on a plug-in or prime type. And these are brighter than the factory running lights that come on some trim levels, but these also integrate with the turn signal and with the flasher circuits, and they come on with a sequential pattern. Also part of this video is I'll do some testing to show exactly what kind of loads these lights put on the system. Before we jump straight into the repairs, I just want to give a reminder, it's always a good idea to check the video description for specifications, tools, and parts that might help you get the job done. And the very few connections we're making to the vehicle harness, I chose the T-tap connector type. And the reason being, like a Scotch lock, you can just take this red wire as a power source, center it on the connector, and then when you fold it over and plunge the connector shut, you've now tapped into that power supply with the advantage of you can now plug a standard spade connector into it, and if you need to, you can pull it back out. You're also going to need some long reach needle nose pliers, and I used about 10 feet of this corrugated conduit. Get some blue, yellow, and red wire. You're going to use a fair amount of that. This is the kit that I received, so we'll go ahead and pull this out of the box. Lights look to be of pretty good quality. Looks like they even gave us some zip ties and some instructions that actually are completely irrelevant. They do look like pretty well built lights. They have power cords, but then they also have these yellow wires. They're not mentioned in any of the instructions, but I'm sure they're the signal wires. The harness that we get comes with a barrel fuse. It's of course removable. It's a 3-amp fuse. Also a horrible excuse of some sort of a Scotch lock type device. Cut that off and throw it away. I certainly did. And when you connect these lights, they come on in a sequential pattern. They're pretty darn bright, actually. And when they're on and you connect the signal overrides at amber and comes on also in a sequential pattern. So it's a very nice effect, and they're very bright lights. This is my own wire, and I'm going to extend the signal wire on this lamp, mostly because I know the power supply for the right turn signal on this car is blue. I'm going to slide these little heat shrink tubes on first, and you're going to see me do a lot of these, so I'm just going to run through this one slowly. And you're going to mesh the two ends that we stripped together, give it a couple twists. That'll hold it together until we can get the soldering gun. Don't touch the solder to the gun. Use the gun to heat up the wires and then let the wires melt the solder, and that'll fill the connection. Now you center your heat shrink tubing over that. And I almost always double insulate my solder connections, so we'll go ahead and get both of the heat shrinks on there. Now we have an extended wire. Now we're going to plug in both of these lights, connect it to a power source, and we're going to check how much current this thing's drawing. We need to convert our multimeter to an amp meter. So we're going to turn the dial to the 10 amp position, and then we're going to move the plug to the top terminal, which is the 10 amp terminal. And then we just want to get it in between the power source and the lights. All right, 0.57, so about a half an amp, a little more than half an amp. That was the peak, and when we connect the signal, it actually drops slightly and then comes back up to the peak. So now we need to do a little calculation. To get the wattage, we're just going to do amps times volts. We put our voltmeter back to a voltmeter, and we come up with a calculation, 0.57, 12.5 volts, about 7 watts. Definitely a lot of light for the money on this one. These OEMs are 1.8, so 3.6 total. That might explain why these are so much brighter than the OEM lights. Last time I did a fog light install video, we received a kit with H11 bulbs. They're 55 watts, total 110 watts for fog lights. In a modern Prius, that would be like a battery heating system. Now, looking at these instructions, again, you can clearly see they're irrelevant to what we received. They're showing an H11 bulb. They're showing switches we didn't get. Okay, they're showing a relay that we neither need or received, and they make no mention of the turn signal lights. They do show connect it to the parking lights, that would work, ground it, plug it in, but again, nothing mentioned about the turn signal wires. I bought a switch that's a standard Toyota profile. It's rated for 3 amp current, so it can handle the full current of this entire system without a relay, no problem. This is where our connections are going to happen, most of them. This beautiful panel, we want it to stay beautiful, so very carefully pull it off. And when I first opened it, I found this rather unpleasant surprise. It was tied into everything. There were a ton of these little T-taps, and we don't have to worry about it anymore, and my car thanks me daily for pulling that proverbial thorn. This is the power supply we're going to use. This red wire, I'm going to make very clear which one. Right here next to the big fat white one. This is ignition hot only. The vehicle has to be on and ready to drive for that to be active. This yellow wire is your left turn signal wire. Okay? This light blue wire right here, that is your right turn signal supply. Also, those both become hot when you turn your flashers on. Now, these are the only connections we're making to the vehicle with the addition of the power for the switch illumination, and we'll get to that a little bit later. On the driver's side, we need to remove this panel. It's just got two Phillips screws, one on the left, one on the right. Once you remove those Phillips screws, the only thing that's going to be holding this panel in place are a couple of thumb latches. Just push those forward, panel will drop, and it's now held in place by the OBD wire. Squeeze it from the sides. There's a couple of little pressure tabs. Once you do that, it'll slide out the back. That allows you to get that panel out of the way, so we'll have a little bit better access. And we're going to push wires using a coat hanger. You can see we have wires taped to a coat hanger, and Toyota gifted us with a grommet where they put their main harness through. They put a little hole in it straight above the accelerator. Here's the accelerator pedal straight up, and this hole is intended for just this sort of thing. There's a close-up of it, and here's what it looks like in the engine compartment. You can see this is where the wires pulled through. You can never leave wires like this unprotected, guys. In fact, I'm going to show you how I rerouted them behind all those brake lines up against the firewall with the protection of the corrugated conduit. And I'll move it around a little so you know which one is mine. There we go. And that's what you need to do on the inside as well. So you'll notice now I have corrugated conduit, and this goes from the grommet all the way up into where we're making our connections here in the dash, okay? So everything's well protected. And this plug comes from the fuel door button switch. And I did that because I need to know which of the wires illuminates. And it's the light blue. I put a probe on it, checked it with the headlight switch, turn the headlights on, and that's the only time it's hot. So that's the illumination circuit. So I put a T-tap on that, plugged a blue wire into it. And now what we're going to do is we're going to permanently solder the switch wires to ground. And there's a white and a black. They're both ground in this particular switch that I got. And this is where I grounded it. And now we're ready to do the switch illumination. This blue wire up on top, that's the power source for illuminating the switch. And we can go ahead and put our heat shrinks on. And now we can actually plug it on to the switch plug, turn on the lights again, double check. Sure enough, the switch lights up when the headlights are on. So now the only two wires that aren't connected are the green and red. Those are the main power lines. We want the red wire on the switch to connect to the power source we identified that's ignition hot only. We're going to solder fill that, put the insulation on it, and now we need to connect the green wire. This is going to provide power when the switch is turned on to the light harness. So this is going to go to the red wire that goes through the grommet into the engine compartment. Okay, so now we're going to protect it all and keep it nice and tidy in this little piece of flex conduit, and we need to get our switch into the dash. How do you get that plug out? This is what the pliers were very useful for. There's a couple of lock tabs on the side of that plug. Once you squeeze those, it'll push forward out, and then we can put our switch in the same slot, put the plug in it, and we're going to check everything now. So the switch lights up with the headlight, push it in, it does nothing, that's what you want. Turn the vehicle on, and now when you push it, the power source. So now you can't leave the lights on and drain your 12-volt battery. To replace the dash side panel, just start with the lower tongue, and then when you put the other tongues in, the friction tabs should align to snap it shut. We're finished inside. Now we need to lift the car to remove the forward undershield. This is the pinch weld rail on the car, reinforced in a few spots. We're going to put this jack puck on the reinforced spot. This is how you lift your Prius. Center the jack on that. And now we're going to have to remove the undershield in the front underside of the car. So get your jack safely in place under the frame and start removing these. Most of the screws look like this. But what you'll find, as soon as we remove this, a few of them are machine screws like this. So pay attention when you're putting things back together so you don't confuse them. And this is one of those pop-up connectors. There's a couple of those down here. And I'll speed through this to save you guys some time, but do try to keep track of which screws go where. And just a reminder, always check the video description to find some things that might help you get the job done. And now the undershield's off, and we can see the block plates that Toyota puts on vehicles that do not come with lower running lights. So there's 3 screws holding them on. I've got the upper screw off. Now we'll get this lower one off. I'm just using a short Phillips screwdriver. and the third one. And once we get this screw out, we have set the block plate free. And we have an opening in our bumper. Okay, now we're going to move over to the right side. This is a plug-in Prius, so it has a heat pump system. There's a lot of refrigerant gear on here, and that includes refrigerant pumps and storage tanks. Now, these screws are a little bit less accessible. The two on the left aren't too bad. You can still use the short screwdriver. The third one up here is pretty tough. This one out here, we don't have to worry about. To get to this one, the short screwdriver will not reach it. I have this kind of 90-degree drive that I use on difficult situations, and it does happen to work for removing the screw. I got it loose enough so I could finish it by hand. And once we get that third screw out, block plate is set free, and we've got another opening in our bumper. This screw up on top for the light is going to be a tough one. Now we'll go ahead and snap it into place right now. Check all the dimensions. Fit and finish was excellent. The bolt patterns on these matched up really well. So whoever made these did a great job. Peel off the shipping protection and we'll get ready to permanently mount this light. We'll do the easy screw first to hold it in place. Once it's held in place, we can get the upper screw in without too much difficulty. There it is. This one is going to be the troublemaker up above. I got it hand started so it stays in place. You can see it. I couldn't even get it with that right angle tool. This is a standard shorty screwdriver. This is a super shorty screwdriver, and you'll notice it's like a bad joke. The shank on the super short one doesn't reach the screw. I've got this 1/4-inch ratcheted thumb drive. Save the day. Okay, I put a Phillips head on there. It fit barely. Once we get that in place, this light is completely screwed in place, and this thing saved the day, and I'm sure links will magically appear in the video description for that. Now we'll get the left one. Left light in comparison is super easy, barely an inconvenience. We're going to go ahead and use this ratcheted thumb drive again, and we'll use the short Phillips screwdriver. It's not too much difficulty with access over here on the left side. Now we're back on the right again, and I'm looking at this signal wire, this yellow wire. I really am not willing to have it outside of the protection of that flex conduit. So you'll see me now zipping it into the conduit, and it will run the full length into the vehicle. I want to support this about every 12 inches minimum, just to keep it out of harm's way. We're not interfering with any of the louver systems on this plug-in vehicle. We're underneath all of that. Go ahead and zip tie this thing up so it doesn't hang. This is the left signal wire. I've already done a solder connection on that. I had some yellow wire, I extended it. Now on the left here is the harness coming out of the vehicle. On the right is the harness for the lights we just installed. I've got things temporarily twisted together because I'm going to do a system test before we do permanent connections between the two harnesses. We'll start with just the running lights. Boy, those are bright. So they're working fine. Now we'll try the signal. Start with the left turn signal. It's working. Nice sequential onset. And we'll try the right signal. Very bright. Looking good. Now we can do permanent connections between our two harnesses. I've already done the soldering. So we'll go ahead and insulate these connections. And with the insulation complete, we can go ahead and tuck everything into the flex conduit. Here's where we're going to join the two together. They have now become one. And we've got a ground that we need to connect. And what I did is I connected it to the forward outer mount screw for the fuse box. It's a good ground. Now here we are, summary, coming out of the firewall. We take a dive in front of the windshield washer bottle. We come under that. I haven't trimmed my zip ties yet. There's the left light under the radiator. Made a couple of holes in the gussets here to hang this thing out of harm's way. There's the right light. So everything's nice and tidy. We can put our undershield back on. I might skip over some of this to save time. Whenever I do an extended project on a vehicle with doors open, I like to restore the charge on the 12-volt battery with a 2-amp charge so I don't hand the inverter a depleted 12-volt battery on startup. And this is the final product. These matched up really well. Looks good. I love the way these lights come on. I like how bright they are. I very much like how they integrate with the turn signals and the emergency flasher system. Well, if you guys found this video useful, please do give a thumbs up and subscribe for future videos. And to help out anybody trying to install these on their vehicle, please do share this video. Thanks for watching.